Veteran lawyer Bradford Cohen spoke on Durk's murder for hire charges. He gives insight on how the Fed's case on Durk himself could actually be hard to prove. Yeah, this defense lawyer actually gives me a little bit of hope for Durk, but at the same time, we don't know all the evidence they have. You'll see how he explains it. It's pretty interesting. He also says it's going to be at least a year until they could start this trial. So yeah, hit subscribe. Here we go, boys. All right, here's Bradford Cohen, very seasoned lawyer right here. Let's see what he has to say about the Lil Durk situation. I've been wanting to hear what a real lawyer's input is on all this, so here we go.
We have another rap star taken into custody on some pretty serious charges. Just what are your initial thoughts on the indictment, the affidavit, these initial documents, and the initial allegations alleged by prosecutors?
I think that when we look at the indictment itself, what's so interesting is, and this happens quite often, they don't put all and everything that they have in the indictment because they don't have to, right? Either less is more.
That's crazy. They're already being strategic with their indictment. They don't want the defense to know everything. That's insane to me.
And in this case, I think that's what they did. They gave them enough to know that they know what's going on, but not enough to know everything that's going on. I think obviously there's been some rumors that there's been a snitch among his group that has been wearing a wire for some time. And if that's the case, it's going to be a very difficult case.
Yeah, he's if there's audio of Lil Durk with this guy on a wire and the jury hears that, if this goes to trial, which I don't think it's going to go to trial. I don't know, actually, but Fed cases don't go to trial, apparently. Or it's a very slim chance they do. A jury hearing that, he's
What I thought was interesting with the indictment is a lot of things around Durk basically revolve around funding that he paid for airport, he paid for flights, he paid for hotels, car rentals, all these things that they utilized in this quote unquote murder for hire.
That's what makes his situation worse than Thug's, because they don't have any of that for Thug. They only have Thug rented a car. They haven't shown any evidence of Thug paying people shit. Besides, I think they said he paid rent for the web, I think, or one of the houses, like just helping his boys out. Or he said he was going to and maybe he didn't. Something like that. I think that's what happened. He said he was going to pay rent and he never did. Dude, I don't know, because this trial's been over a year, but that's what makes Lil Durk's situation worse than Thug's, that they have actual receipts.
And I think that there's going to be individuals that either will flip or that have already flipped, or there's going to be someone very close to him that was wearing a wire that would be willing to testify as to his involvement.
I think there's like 8 or 9 or 10 people involved in the whole thing. Someone's going to flip besides that guy just wearing a wire. And the state's going to have them testify against everyone. So that on top of the wire, you got to think about that as well. This is not looking good for Durk, boys.
A lot of these allegations, you can almost take each one of these and put them into every case that we've seen as of late, where witnesses are either contacted or witnesses are offered a monetary amount not to testify. And sometimes that comes with a civil case. Like if there's a civil matter that's outstanding, they might say, hey, listen, there's a civil matter that you could have, and we're going to give you a settlement of XYZ. The feds automatically take that as you're buying off a witness.
Yeah, they think you're buying off a witness doing that. So they already think Durk has been talking to people to get him to not talk, or someone around them or whatever. But oh man, I really wonder what the evidence they have on him, dude. Because they have more evidence than what they showed.
The friend of a friend might contact you and say like, hey, listen, this isn't a good idea to be a witness in a federal case. The feds take that as, oh, hey, this is, Bob Smith influencing this witness. So when you go in for bond, they say, hey, listen, this guy's trying to influence everybody. And here's all these things.
He ain't getting no bond. Because of the flight situation. This is a federal case. Hell nah. Ain't no way in hell.
A lot of times you'll see in the indictment, there's a lot of accusations in the indictment that when you start getting into it and it starts kind of flushing out the facts.
60% of you aren't subscribed. Come on, hit the subscribe bell.
What could be a basic fact, they stretch it into something that it's not. So in this case, it could be individuals that are loosely associated with OTF or that is signed to the label or something else that has contacted a witness, and they're trying to put whatever they did onto Durk Banks.
Oh, so he's talking specifically about talking to witnesses, that they could be just stretching it and kind of fabricating it. I don't know, man. I don't know.
But I thought it was interesting in the indictment, it didn't specifically say gang, it said an association of individuals that go under OTF. I thought that was kind of interesting because I don't know what kind of evidence they have to say OTF is or is not a gang legally.
I thought it was PTSD from the YSL trial. Let's not rush to call anything a gang because of all the trouble there. That's a separate conversation.
You got to remember, it's also not illegal to be in a gang, too. For you to get a RICO charge, you got to commit a crime and be a part of the gang and rep it and shit.
On the morning of October 24th, we have federal and local law enforcement. They execute these search warrants in Chicago. They arrest Grant, Wilson, Jones, Lindsay, Houston.
You know, that morning he was shitting his pants when all his boys got arrested in Chicago and he's in Florida. He's like getting calls. Hey, they just got him. They just got this. They just got him. They just got DD. If he really did this, you know, he's thinking, oh shit, they know. They know we did something.
That is when they learned that Banks had booked multiple flights that were leaving the country. That seems to be evidence that he might have been trying to leave the country. You tell me what you make of that.
So the first part of that is Dubai is going to extradite you. Switzerland's going to extradite you.
Yeah. I saw memes of that on Twitter. Everyone was like, bro's just going to get extradited back if he flees there.
The only three places that don't extradite are like, you go to Vietnam, you go to Morocco, all these other countries, even if they don't have a treaty with the U.S. for extradition, they're going to extradite because they rely on the U.S. for money. They rely on the U.S. for support. I don't make much of whether or not he was going to escape and flee the country.
But multiple flights booked and then a private jet too? It's definitely suspicious. I'd say it's about an 80% chance he was trying to flee.
It was unusual that there were so many booked, right? What's not unusual is sometimes where some associates get arrested, and in order to see whether or not they have a warrant, because that's not public knowledge, whether or not they have a warrant, they'll book an international flight and it'll red flag them. And then they'll get a call from the FBI or their lawyer will get a call and they'll say like, hey, your client's red flagged. They're trying to leave the country. Just so you know, they're under investigation or XYZ. And you find out information you wouldn't necessarily find out.
That's interesting. I did not know that. It could have been his lawyer and him testing to see if he has a warrant, and if they're investigating him, about to arrest him. Hammer's about to come down.
So you're saying they didn't have an option where he calls his lawyers and say, hey, can you check with the feds to find out if there's a warrant out for my arrest? That wouldn't work. So you're saying this is a way for him to find out, hey, am I in trouble? I'm going to book these flights and see if they get flagged.
Sure, and it's happened before. Now, the difference here is there's so many flights. You know, there's 2 or 3 flights that were booked. That's the weird part of it. But it wouldn't be weird for me to see someone that books a flight to the Bahamas. They book a flight to, Italy or Spain. And then, within 6 hours of booking that flight, they get a call or we get a call. That happens quite often. Now, it depends on your lawyer. Like, I've been doing this so long, I can make a phone call and not necessarily find out if there's a warrant, but I'll find out. They'll tell me, hey, listen, don't have your guy leave the country. Like he's being watched. Right. And then I know, okay, just let me know if I need to surrender him or whatever I need to do. And that's the relationship that you build over 30 years. Not everyone can do that.
I did not know about that alternative explanation at all, because I just thought that's like, oh, he was definitely trying to flee. But now I'm like, maybe.
Talk to me how strong you think this case is. If the prosecutors are trying to prove conspiracy, what do you make of some of this evidence? Text messages, surveillance, travel receipts, what do you make of it?
I don't know everything that's going on. Obviously, no one does. From what I'm reading in the indictment, I think there's some missing pieces there when it comes to Durk about how involved he was in this alleged conspiracy. The other guys, where they all have plane tickets, they all got a car, they're on tape. That's going to be a very difficult case for those lawyers who have that case, because there are so many ways these days to catch individuals in this type of crime. It's real funny because very often you find these red light cameras and things like that the feds get on state cases where I want the footage, where I know it's good for my client. They're like, sorry, we don't save that footage. But somehow the feds get camera footage from red light cameras, camera footage from the next door neighbor.
Sounds familiar with the YSL trial. All the footage that could be favorable to the defense is just gone. Remember the McDonald's footage where they say there was a big meeting, everyone met at McDonald's, but there's no footage of it.
So you'll see that they will put together a forensic case against the actual shooters that will be very heavily based on cell phone records, GPS data, and videotapes. Now, when it comes to Durk Banks, so far I've seen one text that says, don't have them associate my name with any kind of flights that they're taking. Certainly that's not a good text.
Definitely not a good text. But if they also have them on a wire, that's very, very bad, right?
But is that the only text? Because that in itself doesn't stand on its own. Certainly it's circumstantial. We have to wait and see what other evidence they have. If they have have a snitch, if they have videotapes or audio tapes of him saying something, I think that's a lot different than, hey, just make sure you don't associate my name with these guys. Because he could be blaming Grant or one of these other guys and saying like, hey, these guys are going to do some crazy stuff. And he's like, hey, listen, make sure it doesn't associate with me at all. You can look at that a million different ways. I'm hesitant to say that they have a slam dunk case on Durk Banks. I think that they have a long way to go on Durk Banks in order to prove the conspiracy against him. I think the others, I think it's going to be very heavily based on paperwork.
If you make the argument that the case against the shooters is really strong, could there be a situation where they work out an attractive plea deal?
Oh, here's plea deal talks. This is what I was interested in because federal cases, a lot of them just take pleas. People are going to flip on this.
It all depends on the hunger of the U.S. attorney and the AUSA that's involved. And if they want this individual badly enough, they'll make very attractive deals for these individuals.
That's what I think is going to happen, though. They're going to be going for the big fish, like in the YSL trial, which is Durk.
They'll take whoever is the least culpable, and I think that they'll approach him and make a deal with him that'll be the most attractive. And if that guy doesn't make a deal, they'll move on to the next guy. And I think what also is interesting with the indictment is it wasn't just money. They're like, oh, it could have been money or it could have been career advancement.
Right.
Which is, it's strange to mention that because they don't really go into any kind of facts about it.
Well, yeah, they don't have to yet. Sounds like there could be conversation. Like they have conversations of them agreeing to maybe sign someone or give them an advance.
It could have been that they would have advanced in their career, but what does that look like? Durk promised them like a record deal? Like doesn't,
or they assumed it.
Strange.
And if they assumed it, that's a weaker case for the prosecution.
You got it. That's the key, right? They're like, hey, I knew if I helped him out, he would give me a record deal.
See, this defense lawyer is kind of making me like feel like there's hope for Durk a little bit, but I don't know if he's just a good defense lawyer or if that's because we don't know what all evidence they have.
These type of cases where it's very, very heavy on paperwork, you won't see a trial for 12 to 14 months minimum. Murder for hire cases in state court usually take 18 to 24 months. If it's really, really quick, 18 months. They're going to need phone experts. They're going to need video surveillance experts. All these different experts they're going to have to hire. And I usually, on these type of cases where they're saying, oh, he was talking in code, I usually also hire an expert in like the lingo, right? It's like individuals that are in the rap world that can say, oh, I know what the word cat means. So, and you'd be surprised because the feds always, whenever there's a word that they think could be this way, it can also be interpreted the other way.
There's a million things like that in the YSL trial. A million things. Blat, slat, slime. They thought Thug was putting $24 million bounties on people's heads, but it was really just Uzi put a diamond that was worth $24 million.
And they always want to interpret it against your client.
Thug's lyrics, I got snipers behind me, and then they tried to connect Thug to a car behind him, literally. That's the lyric. They tried to connect him to a car behind him that had weapons in it that weren't even snipers. Then he said, I got snipers behind me in a song.
So all those things take time. So I would guess 12 to 14 months minimum.
12 to 14 months is his guess. That's a long ass time. Do you see Durk taking a plea? I don't know, man. Same situation with Thug. Like, I don't see these guys taking pleas, but it wouldn't surprise me. But it sounds like there's a glimpse of hope for Durk, but could just be a good defense lawyer. We don't know all the evidence they have. That's all update we have. Hit subscribe. Join the channel membership. Love you guys. Peace out.